Hi, welcome to Biz Pointz TV, the show that introduces you to new and trending business topics, smart technologies, and the people that are impacting our small business communities. I'm your host, Larry Kortkamp, and today we have a great guest for you. We'll be back in just a minute to have put on the show.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Kortkamp, founding partner at the Kortkamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Kortkamp.
Welcome back. Today we've got a great show for you today. We have Tina O'Banion with TFO Solutions. Tina, thank you for coming today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Tina, your business is in the realm of accounting.
Correct.
We have been in a very odd period of time in our United States here this past year, really the world, and obviously a lot of impacts on our businesses primarily, and particularly small businesses. How does accounting, does any of that play into what a business does for their accounting? What areas do we need to think about? The thing I'm thinking about is now I'm working from home. I had a lot more expenses than I used to have. I've got employees scattered everywhere. I've got new technology I had to purchase. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've got to plan for my business now that I didn't have to plan before. And I usually think of an accountant as, he's the tax guy at the end of the year, but really that's the farthest thing from the truth, isn't it?
Correct. So at the beginning of the year, everyone was kind of going along, and then the government offered some PPP, payroll protection plan, to these organizations. And if they had employees and they had their finances together, they were reaching out to their banks and saying, hey, what do I need to submit to apply for this loan? Well, it was interesting how little information that they had ready to supply to their bankers.
Tina, actually, that's a very good spot to start with us. I met with several bankers recently, and they were complaining that as much as 70% of the small business people that approached them to get a loan didn't have the necessary documentation in order to even fill out the application.
Yeah, isn't that surprising?
It really isn't, and that's what we're talking about today.
Right, exactly. It is interesting to know that in the beginning of this year, everything was going fine, and then everything happened and people had to slow down, or they were laying off their employees, and the government came in and said there's an opportunity for small businesses to get a payroll protection plan for them, so that they would be covered in their payroll and also rent and all those types of expenses. I got bombarded with calls saying, Tina, I need your help, because my banker has this 22 list of things I've got to provide them, and I don't have that. So can you help me get this to them? And I did. I just spent countless hours trying to help them get their finances together so that they can submit that to their banker so they could apply for the loan.
But you know, that's commonly when we hear about trying to do this, when I'm trying to accomplish a goal, or I'm trying to either prepare for my taxes or I'm trying to get a loan. That's the worst time to try and put this information together, because all this information that we're talking about, whether it's a balance sheet or expense report or inventory report or costing, that is so important to a business. How do you run a business if you don't know anything about your business?
I know, isn't that amazing? Have you ever watched Shark Tank, where they say, you get on there, you got these entrepreneurs wanting to try to get some equity into their business, and they don't even know what the cost of this certain item is, or what their margins are, or what have you. So that's a deal breaker right there. So when businesses say that they have a CPA, and I'm good that they have a CPA, well, they get their taxes done with their CPA, which is great. You need to pay your taxes, right? But your CPA is not going to help you with the monthly financial statements that you need to be reviewing on a regular basis. A lot of entrepreneurs, what they do is they run project to project. As long as they make this kind of money that covers their salaries and their employee salaries and some of their overhead costs, but they really don't look at it from a strategic point of view, meaning what is this going to look like if something were to happen? And so all these businesses had to pivot. And when they had to pivot, they had to think about what's their ongoing cost, what's their overhead like. And now if that changes, what does this look like when people have to work from home? Do I have enough savings in my bank account to be able to see this through this pandemic? So it's not surprising that the banker that you mentioned said that 70% didn't have these financials ready for them because they just don't know.
And when we talk about these documents, let's drill down just a little bit. So one of these things is a balance sheet. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about what makes up the documents that we're really referencing here in our conversation. Mm-hmm. I think we're about time for a break, and I know that's going to take a little while. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute to talk more with Tina O'Banion.
Strong business has always been the clear economic indicator. Work Suites in Allen, Texas is just one of 18 locations in DFW and Houston that support your necessary transitions with full service and affordable workspaces for upgrading or downsizing your current workload. You need to be focused on growth. Trust the office experts and helpful staff at Work Suites to take care of everything else, from dedicated phone lines and internet to furnished executive and co-working spaces. The OBBM network has tripled our business in the short months we've been with Work Suites and encourages you to step out boldly, make the tough decisions, and get back to work your way. Your nation depends on it. The OBBM network acknowledges that this is a pivotal time in history, and it is clear the United States of America has been undermined by many of our elected officials for some time now. We want our local business audience to stand strong in the face of what we now understand, and to be empowered to grow our businesses on the local level beyond the limitations that have been imposed upon us. We believe it is in our national interest to inspire our communities through strong economic development, and additionally to hold our elected officials accountable for accurate representation of we the people. For that reason, we encourage you to go to WeStandForFreedom.com to learn about the National Write Your Congressman organization that has been the trusted communication tool for local communities for over 60 years. Learn how your representatives are voting. Understand the laws and regulations under consideration on the state and federal level before they are enacted at the county and city levels. Communicate directly with these officials and stand up for yourself, for by doing so, you will protect the communities you serve from tyrannical rule and unconstitutional reforms. The OBBM network is the premier voice for local business, and we take that responsibility seriously. The OBBM network has everything you need to grow and transition your business for success on popular syndicated podcast networks, Roku and other video channels, and the OBBM network app. We work for you, local business, and we've got your back.
Hi, and welcome back. Today we're talking with Tina O'Banion about accounting. When we left, we were getting involved in what really documents, when we talk about preparing documents for a loan application or for what have you, what are some key documents that we're talking about?
Well, there's the basic three in the financial world. There's your income statement, which your income statement tells a great story about your business and whether or not you're profitable. But what I like to explain it, how I like to explain it is, it's like a sandwich. So the top piece of your bread is your income, and then your net income is the bottom piece. But everything in the middle is what makes that sandwich really good. And if you're not paying attention to your expenses, your cost of goods sold, or your overhead fluctuating month over month, that's a huge miss for a business owner. You know, entrepreneurs and business owners, they do something very well. That's why they're successful. But if they lose track of their finances, or they have their administrative assistant or their Uncle Joe doing their accounting, you might miss on some of this very, very important pieces of your financial statement. So number one is your P&L. Everyone knows what that is your profit and loss statement. And then from there, you have cash flow. A lot of people don't look at cash flow. They kind of know in the back of their mind, okay, I spend $10,000 for my rent, and I do this and I do that, so I've got to cover those costs. But the most important financial statement, I would say, that we have that no one really looks at is your balance sheet.
And why is that?
Because it can hide things that are really not accurate on your P&L, your profit and loss statement.
Okay, such as?
Okay, so I'll give you some examples. If you ignore that, if you ignore your balance sheet, which is your assets, liabilities, and your owner's equities. If you ignore what your payables are sitting there, you could potentially not pay them, and then you can get sued or get a lawsuit saying, hey, you've got to pay your payables. Also, it's your working capital. So you take your current assets minus your current liabilities, and this is you want this to be greater than 1. You have more assets, more cash, and more liquidity in your business. But you want to have that greater than 1 so that you know what you can afford to pay on your balance sheet. Also, there's things like debt. You can just really kind of dig in there to really see what's going on with your business. I've had examples where a client of mine said they had a big liability sitting on their books. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was paid off a long time ago. Well, their former bookkeeper wasn't putting the principal and interest and all that stuff towards that item on their balance sheet. It had been paid off. I got confirmation from the lender that this had been paid off.
So I live with an accountant, my wife, not necessarily a full-fledged, but she's really good at what she does. And you said a nasty word. You said bookkeeper.
Oh.
There is somewhat of a little identity discrepancy there. What is the difference between when we say a bookkeeper and an accountant?
Okay. Good question. A lot of bookkeepers have just kind of fallen into this profession, meaning they've kind of learned from processing accounts payable or doing, collections and billing to the customers, and they call themselves a bookkeeper. A lot of them are not educated in the field itself, and it's mainly self-taught, live and learn. And I think the accountant or the controller or your CFO has that education, but also has a little bit more in-depth knowledge of your business. Take for me, for example, I started out at 24. I was a controller of a business. I didn't have the education, but I had the knowledge and the know-how and the thumbs up from the CPAs, right? So I was a very young person in this field, but I eventually got my degree in accounting and made it to the CFO level. And it's more of the big picture, being able to strategize with the company.
I think that's the important thing. And one of the reasons why I really was excited about having you on the show today is because I know what you do in your role with a business. And most business people they have a negative connotation when it comes to accounting because they associate it with the tax at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And really that's the wrong time to be thinking about what you do to help a business. So as a business consultant, it's all about planning, right? I want to have a business plan. We have a marketing plan, and you are an integral part to be able to make those things happen because you help us manage our cash flow. We can't budget. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but right now in this year, we've got some big things that have happened and people are really suffering cash flow wise. Mm-hmm. But there's one thing that can't suffer. If you want your business to survive, you can't go quiet. You've got to still be loud and proud. You got to be out there advertising and you've got to be marketing yourself. And that takes money to do. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you do is you help me find the money. Right. If I've got to cut here or add to there or infuse capital, maybe with a loan of some kind, I need that outside influence for my business because there is a big picture to this. And now I've got to make different expenditures maybe than what I was typically doing before. And marketing and advertising is a huge part of that. And I got to find that money somewhere. So.
Right. Exactly, and that's what I help small businesses do. I look at where they're spending, where they can cut costs, where they can, I had a client ask me, should I buy a truck or should I lease the truck? Well, let's look at your finances and let's try to figure out a way that this makes sense. If you're traveling from state to state, you probably don't want to lease that truck. You probably want to go ahead and buy it. So the whole strategy around what's going on and how do I pivot. I've had a client that asked me, I've got this SBA is willing to give me $250,000, and he and I talked about it. So why do you need the money? I'm their accountant. I do everything from the back office to CFO role with them, and it just came down to it that as he's bouncing this idea off of me, he didn't need the loan. Why commit to a loan paying interest when you really don't need it at this time? If
you don't need to carry the debt, why incur the debt?
Right, exactly.
And a lot of situations with people in business, they have other mechanisms or ways that they can actually make their cash flow last long. Maybe their vendors are extending credit or longer payout terms, but often in that role we have entrepreneurs that are, as you said, they're very good at doing something, or they wouldn't be where they are today, but they often, at sometimes along that journey of creating a business, they either get in over their head or they're just really not good at other things. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'd like to talk more about that, how you influence an entrepreneur. We'll be back in just a minute. We're talking with Tina O'Banion.
Our position in the market is that we work for a customer to align them with the correct retailer for their business. We'll custom price and build a contract around your business requirements, not around the supplier's preferred way of doing things. We go and do a custom price based on your energy usage profile. And in our business, we can help any commercial business owner, regardless of the size of their company. If you're paying $100 for your electricity per month or you're paying $1 million, we're able to help you get a better price based on who you are. Our position in the market is that we work for a customer to align them with the correct retailer for their business. Texas is very proud to have been able to shut down 9 coal-fired power plants in the last few years and replace that production with clean burning renewable energy. The 85% of the electricity in the grid for Texas is used on commercial. We're here to help those 85% reduce their costs as much as possible.
Introducing IV Hookup.
IV treatments have been the standard of care used for years to deliver intravenous hydration treatment to patients. Our medical director has created a safe, industry-standard protocol to efficiently support your wellness through IV vitamin hydration, including options for athletic performance, mood enhancement, general wellness, and hangover recovery. IV Hookup now offers full-spectrum COVID-19 testing at reasonable prices. This means we can get you and your staff tested in a quick time frame. Are you hosting a group event? We can provide a customized package for IV treatment and COVID testing as well. IV Hookup is everything you need to both stay healthy and to prove it.
Go to ivhookup.com to order yours, and we'll bring it right to you. That's ivhookup.com.
Hi, and welcome back. Today we're talking with Tina O'Banion. Tina, before we left for the break, we were getting ready to talk a little bit more in depth about maybe a pathway or how you help a business to navigate through their business and what they're going to do, particularly now with our current pandemic situation. A lot of extra expenses. We still have to plan for the future. Give me a little guidance here. How can we help a business?
Well, first of all, I would look at, how are you going to pivot and how are you going to generate revenue? It's also looking at, okay, what do I need to cover my basic costs to stay alive? What is needed as far as cash flow? But also, when you do pivot and you start going down this road of let's take a caterer, for instance, right? They cater big events. Well, that's not happening. So now my particular client is moving into a corporate events where you can do Zoom cooking classes and all that. Well, so I worked with her on how do you price that? Do I price it for a corporation and the number of people and all this? So we got that down and we talked about the budget. Okay, how much do you need to make to cover your basic overhead? And then from there, how do we project that out and how do we get that exposure by marketing and all these other things?
And every business is different. And that's why there's no cookie cutter solution to all these. These are very fundamental questions that people are getting faced with in reality today. And the reality is, I may not be in business tomorrow. I've got to figure something out, whether that's reducing employees, reducing cost, hard decisions that a lot of people really didn't think they were going to have to make. And now we may be even entering a second phase or whatever that's happening. So we're really trying to make these big decisions. They don't have to go it alone, but they do need somebody to help guide them along the way. And as a business owner myself, sometimes I'm making decisions from a place that I shouldn't be making that decision from, right? So in your situation, you actually can help them to make those better decisions.
Yes, exactly. So I don't consider myself a typical accountant. I'm a huge networker and I meet with people and I have a personality, but what I like the most is seeing the big picture, right? There are accountants out there that just want to focus on the tactical, the day-to-day, but they don't want to look at that strategy. And I think with TFO Solutions, you get that from us because I've experienced multiple different industries and different personalities and management. My tagline is from the back office to the boardroom. And so what that means is we can do everything tactical, but also have that strategy piece, that one-on-one. Hey, a client calls me up and says, I want to buy a truck, or hey, I've got to do this, and what do you think I should do? Is you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a budget, you got to think past this current month and think of the future and whether or not that's a 1-year plan or a 5-year plan. Some people don't know what the 1-year plan looks like.
Some don't know what the 1-month plan looks like right now.
Exactly.
They're really struggling on how they do that.
Right.
And then this, like I say, this is a real-time situation for an awful lot of people. They need assistance on how to, and some of these are tough questions and they don't want to face those questions. And they need someone like you to help them to plan through that. If they need to lay off some people, if they need to negotiate a different lease where they're in, if they need to relocate their business, these are real-time situation questions that are coming up that they need help and assistance in planning through.
Or turnarounds or what have you. There's so many things out there that people need to look at instead of what's bringing them down. You got to look to the future and look. I like to be a business partner with entrepreneurs. Yes, I know accounting. Yes, I know finance, and yes, I know this. But I look at things through a financial lens. Really, what it's going to cost you, but what are the benefits and what's the ROI and all of these things that your typical accountant really wouldn't help you with. Yep. So I think that's what's key for me.
Because you talked earlier about a widget and you don't know what's in it. A lot of businesses don't realize how much money they leave on the table.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're buying from a particular vendor or a particular source. They're doing something the way they've always done it. And without looking at the way they've always done it may not necessarily be the most cost-effective way for them to do it. So rather than having something shipped in, maybe they could get it delivered to them a different way. Maybe they could deliver their product a different way. There's so many different ways that a business can be affected by how they do business. From whether it's, we like to talk about technology on our show a lot, but it's also managing really the nuts and bolts of their business and how they do that appears on their balance sheets, on their P&L. Everything translates back to the money. And I think if there was one thing that I'd like to leave people with today is that you are really their friend. You're not the tax guy. They really need a guide to lead them through this business world of theirs on how to maximize the potential of their business all the time. And from what I know of you and what you've done for other businesses, it's people like your company that are going to help them to do that. If we need to leave the audience with something that you'd like to share, what would you like to leave today?
Well, I would say, take finances very seriously. I mean, it's okay to kind of skate by, but if something like this happens to you, then you're kind of stuck. Like, how do I get through this? And you got to pivot, but also look at your finances, not just what's in your checking account. I remember back in about 20 years ago, this new client that I went to or started working for, he would call the bank and see what his balance was to operate his business. That's not the way you want to do it, right?
That was me. I got checks. I got plenty.
I got checks. Call and let's see what the bank is. Now it's online. But no, I think it's important to really stay focused, even though numbers may not be your thing, or you think your administrative assistant is doing a good job. Just really look at your financial statements.
All right. Well, I want people to get in touch with you. How are we going to do that?
Great. So you can reach me at www.tfosolutions.llc.com or email me at info@tfosolutions.llc.com.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and Tina O'Banion particularly. There was some interesting information that we've learned. It's so important. You've got to know what your business is doing at all times, and it's the numbers that'll kill you. Thanks for joining us today. Please join us on our next episode.
To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Kortkamp Group at 972-824-8001 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. Biz Pointz TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.